Brian Merrill, and this is KISS TV, and with me is Keith Payne. Keith is from ARHI, Building and Remodeling, and we're here with Keith because there's a lot of cool things going on in our hometown of Union City, and one being specifically, you're going to hear a lot of something called historic Oakstreet. And if you know anything about Oakstreet in Union City, there's a section there that Keith's going to tell us about a development going up and some affordable housing. And so Keith, what I'm curious about, and what I think other people be curious about is, talk to me about the genesis of this, the seed, if you will, of how this all got started and why Union City, why Oakstreet?
That's a big question. And so I'm going to kind of narrow it down, but it all in essence began because years ago, with me being in development, there was a gentleman by the name of Michael Griswold that had helped finance one of the houses that I had built in my development years ago. Time went on and now I have a family, and Michael remembered me. We were at Cracker Barrel, and he said, Keith Payne. And it took me a second, but I remembered. So from that point, we reconnected there. We exchanged cards. A few weeks later, Michael called me, and it was with something that he had been speaking with Nate. And
Nate Conklin.
Nate Conklin, yeah, and Nate and the mayor were speaking about a particular opportunity, and that's where it started. Michael knew that I was very creative dealing with building because I've done a lot of design. Most people think I'm an architect, but I'm not an architect. I think like an architect, but a lot of my styles are very creative. So Michael recommended me to Nate, and Nate ended up getting me in front of his father, the mayor, and we arranged the meeting, and then from there it kind of just
I remember that first presentation at council meeting. I was excited because I just thought, again, just another thing, another cog in the gear, if you will, of Union City trying to redefine itself.
Yes.
And doing things. I personally think this is a great thing. Keith, I guess I'm curious now, Union City is not obviously the first place, but when you first start out, is this kind of a program for smaller towns that are in similar situations like Union City? Or
you know, the culmination of this has been very interesting, primarily because of the size of Union City. It's not, you know, I build a lot in Indianapolis. You know, Indianapolis is roughly 800,000, arguably potentially 1 million, depending on what counties you're including. With Union City, what caught my attention was the desire to reinvent yourself, where you don't have a lot to work with. And so those are very respectable traits that really kind of inspire me, because how I tend to work, unlike how most businesses, I work based upon where I feel inspiration, or where I feel motivation, or where I feel there's a hunger or a drive. And with what the city was attempting to try to do, after speaking to multiple builders that weren't interested, I knew what it was like with me trying to get started, trying to get somebody to listen to me, and that little voice always has just kind of been there. And I sat and listened and looked at the logistics. It is a good distance, but when I started listening more and more of what the goal was, what types of resources the city did have, you know, I started becoming a lot more interested.
Now, we do have a big, coming up on the 17th of this month, is a big, an open house, if you will, the community room. You're going to talk about this more, and also that we will be playing, and we'll probably playing at the end of this piece here with Keith, a video that you had made. A very cool video that you had done about Union City and everything like that. It was well done. We've already played it on KISS TV, but we'll definitely put it on the end of this. Tell us about when you're going to break ground. Is there already a set date, Keith, that you're going to put the shovel in the ground?
There is a proposed date that I'm holding on to, but we still have to go through the necessary steps, which those steps are in process. Part of it is dealing with not necessarily rezoning, but looking for necessary permits and filings that we have to go through to be able to
all that red tape you
all
gotta
that
go
red
through.
tape, you know, the bureaucracy. And but you know, I come from a building background. My degree's in building and development, so the whole bureaucratic process of development, I understand it, and it's a common thing in the industry that you hurry up and wait. And what that basically means, you hurry up, fill out your paperwork, get everything done, make sure it's all correct, turn it in, and you're waiting for them to call and say, okay, we're ready for the next step. I'm used to that. So with that being the case, my break ground date is not defined because I'm still waiting on these types of approvals. The process I'm familiar with, but we are moving, I feel, expeditiously through the process. With that being said, we could possibly look at a break ground date anywhere between possibly May or June.
So coming up relatively soon. That's good.
Relatively soon, yeah. I definitely don't like letting dust settle.
Let's talk about these units. Again, for the folks that are familiar with Oakstreet, there's a stretch of essentially nothing there that you're going to build on. How many units, Keith, are you looking to, I don't want to say squeeze into, because you have different things that I've offered, I've saw some of the plans, but how many units are you looking to build on that plot of land? And could you just tell me more about the homes? Is it going to be aimed at younger people, or maybe families that had the big family, they wanted something smaller now, they want to relocate to Union City? What is your plan for the kind of people that will be living in the house, or that you want to market towards?
It's a very good question. And leading up to that answer, it all primarily began from the first initial meeting with the mayor, hearing his narrative of what his vision was. The second thing was, obviously you were there at the council meeting doing the presentation, listening to what the council was saying, listening to the participation of the neighborhood, as well as finally getting a chance working with my architect, and we start pulling all that together. So with that being the case, knowing that we need to focus around affordable housing, I can't do the $600,000 or $800,000 home that I may be building in a particular area in Indy, but also taking those same traits to build a much more affordable house that has character. So in doing that, you have to look at economies of scale. So that being said, I came up with, in essence, 3 different floor plans. One is a 1-story that's going to be geared toward more the elderly or people who can't necessarily or don't have a desire to climb stairs. The one that'll be a 2-story is geared much more toward more of a family, that you may have 3 bedrooms upstairs and a living area downstairs. And there's one for those who potentially may want something even much more scaled up, which would be a 3-story. I've drawn preliminarily designs in there like rooftops if somebody wanted, but these add costs to it. So the biggest focus will be primarily around the 1-story and the 2 stories. The 1-story is going to be the most affordable that we're looking for. The house is being able to come in roughly 130, 129, 130, somewhere around there, and depending on choices. But to hit those types of numbers, which includes the land as well as the building and all the infrastructure that you have to deal with, I've looked at putting it together whereas it's pretty much compartmentalized, whereas all the plans will be the same floor plan for each story. So the 1-stories all have the same floor plan. The 2 stories all have the same floor plan. The 3 stories will also have the same floor plans. Where the difference comes in is the frontage. So each particular front will have its own unique look. So at least the appeal from when you drive down the street, it'll look like the houses are almost all individually done homes, because there'll be different colors, different types of facades. Some of them may have parapet walls. Some of them may very well have porches. There's a whole plethora of ideas we can use to mix up the feel of the house, still leaning much more toward an older historic feel.
With Oakstreet, Oakstreet's getting ready to have a big modification done on both sides of the street, I think from like Mulberry to High Street.
Very exciting.
For those folks that know Union City. And that makes it even more aesthetically pleasing for all this development going around. One of the questions I want to ask, Keith, is this geared towards any buyer? You mentioned, if you're a senior citizen or old folks that might want to be moving into something. What about a new first-time home buyer?
First-time home buyer too,
Married couple just got married, looking to maybe have 1 or 2 kids, looking for a nice place to live. How would they go through the process of talking to you or to Nate, or who would they talk to if somebody, like I said, buying a home for the first time? I don't think they'd be talking to Keith Payne, but would they be talking to Nate about getting them into the home? Can you walk me through the process?
No, the process will be is currently I have a website which is www.arhi-
and we'll put all that up.
.com. So on my website there will be, and we're working on this already, there will be a link that will have historic Oakstreet. It'll be under my development. So that way, when I create the web page for historic Oak Street, which we'll put signage out in the streets and things like that. When people dial into that or click on it or put it into their URL or their search engine, it'll go immediately to that particular page dealing with historic Oak Street. Within that page, it'll have pictures of floor plans, pictures of the concepts of the house. It'll have a brief narrative of the neighborhood and what we're accomplishing, what we're striving to do. And it will have at the bottom, which is the most important, answering your question. It'll have a button where you can click it, and normally you'll have contact me, but I may very well make it so it has reserve now or for more information. They'll click it, so then there'll be a page that comes up that people will be able to put their name, address, their contact information. So then we can reach out, and they can reach out to us.
With everything coming to head, and again, all the work this isn't the first time we've talked to everything. So I've been along the process. Wednesday, April 17th at 7 p.m. in the community room, that's downtown in Union City. I'm walking in on the 17th after seeing this program. Keith, what am I expecting?
It's a good question. What you'll expect basically is more of a consolidated presentation of everything that's happened up to this point, because there's been many steps, meeting with the council, meeting with particular offices where we've had to make filings, the whole video shooting that we've done, the whole footage of the house plans. What people will see will be a whole culmination of that, a whole presentation geared much more toward the public versus, in this case, leading up to this, my presentations have been geared toward the council.
Yes.
But this will be much more geared toward the general public. I know a lot of people have a lot of questions, which will be welcome. There will be a lot of comments, a lot of interest, a lot of excitement, and we are looking to take that excitement and continue to push toward bringing this into existence. So what people expect to be able to see is more detail on floor plans, more detail on particular styles of the units, color renderings and things like that, more interaction. We really want to kind of, I believe in getting people involved, because I think that's when you have your most successful projects, where you have a basis. Here's the foundation we're building on. And then with people's input is how we refine it.
With up to 17th, obviously you're the home builder. I'm assuming that there'll be people in finance, there'll be people, local contractors to talk to, local materials companies. In the meetings I've been to, Keith, the one thing you're really focusing on using as much local as you can. I think it's very important to the communities, especially such as Union City. So on the 17th, it's not only going to be Keith, you're going to have some local contractors and some local, some money lenders and people that'll be able to answer your questions. So hopefully when you're an interested family or an interested buyer would leave this meeting on the 17th, they'll have all the answers that they need to make an educated decision. They won't have to wait to come back or anything. Right. Hopefully everybody will be there to explain their input into this whole project of historic Oak Street, and they'll be able to walk away with a far more educated decision that they'll have to make if they decide to move forward. From groundbreaking to, if there's 15 units, Keith, time frame wise, how long does it take to do that many?
That's really a kind of unknown question.
Weather dependent on all the other variables, but just natural curiosity.
It depends. Again, this is market driven. I can put up a spec home, which is what I'll do, so people will be able to see things, but it really does depend on how well the community embraces it. We very well could, on the presentation coming up here later on this month, we could very well get 20 interested people and get them all qualified. So then the question becomes, if we have pre-sold the number of units that we're seeking, how long would it take to potentially build out that number of units? Now, if we did have that being the case, we could be able to build a whole complex out within 18, 24 months.
You'd mentioned a spec home, Keith. Can you tell me what goes into a spec home? This is our spec home, can you tell me more about that and elaborate?
Yeah. Well, what tends to happen in most spec homes, and I'll do the same thing here, this house that I will introduce will be a house that's fairly scaled up for the size. It will probably be the entry level, the one story that we will end up doing, but it will have all the bells and whistles on it. One of the things that also kind of caught my attention is the fact that Union City is after being a green city, clean energy, which is another thing I think is responsible for the future moving forward, because clean energy is cheaper energy because you're getting it free, you know, from the sun or whatever, wind, whatever. There's no cost to it, and that helps bring down the actual costs to living. So you will most likely see some of these types of green, clean energy ideas that may be present, possibly some solar or possibly even a wind turbine that may be sitting in the back. So that as people come through, they can see, okay, this wind turbine you see in the back is actually powering this refrigerator. And in majority of the homes, majority of the costs that tends to get eaten up is through a lot of the refrigerators. So, you know, if you can kind of just take a little bit from here, a little bit from here, and help reduce the cost, then over the long run, the savings for the homeowner becomes exponentially huge. Because I was just reading in an article just a few days ago that it's like a very large percentage of Americans can't afford a home. And so this is really a growing problem, especially with the aging community that's happening. You know, the baby boomers are starting to move to the next stage. So, you know, affordable housing is in my viewpoint, extremely important. But because it's affordable does not mean it has to be cheap. Yeah. And so what my goal is with the model to build it so the house has character. It doesn't necessarily mean that size makes it bigger. But I think if you have something that's well thought out, well planned out, which I have very good architects working with me, so the house flows well, so that you're getting multi-uses out of one room. You're not having to go to the kitchen just to be in the kitchen. I mean, you can be in the kitchen, but the dining room may be part of the kitchen, but they feel both separate. It's the same thing like when you go into Starbucks sometimes. Take a look around, because within their little small space, if you look at where you check out and get your coffee and where people are sitting, intermingling, it feels like it's two separate defined spaces, but it's just one big area. And so the whole concept is bringing that to a house so that people can feel not only at home, but feel connected. So if somebody is in the kitchen and somebody's in the dining room looking at entertainment, which, you know, I'm into doing, you know, wall mount TVs, you know, the big 70-inch screens that are on there. So that way the connectivity for people either playing games, watching a game, watching a movie while somebody is in the kitchen cooking, it's all connected. So that way the whole family can be able to stay together. So those are, you know, some of the concepts that I currently do in a lot of my projects, which is one of the reasons why we tend to get a lot of work, because I think more of an interconnectivity within how housing should be.
Well, when you mentioned $130,000 in Union City for a home, you know, I think is a shock value number when you live in Union City. You think about that number, but really it's not that much more monthly in a payment versus any rent that you would pay.
Right.
The other thing I find attractive to this, Keith, is again, if you're a newly married couple and you're looking for your first time home to get into for a number of years, very affordable, I think, for a young couple to be able to get into this situation of the Oakstreet, historic Oakstreet home.
Well, and especially when you look at the fact, you know, you mentioned, yes, we will have people there ready for funding. And there's different types of funding that could be available. I mean, with FHA, you know, they have the 3% down programs. And within the FHA programs, there's certain things that the builder can do to help reduce the cost. Well, I mean, you're talking basically, you know, a monthly payment of anywhere between $500 to $600 or $700 a month. Granted, you know, the 3% down would be a little bit of a leap for, you know, for some people that may not have necessarily saved, but there's a lot of different incentives and programs out that can be able to help people get there. Some people will have their 3%. Some people may want to put 10% down or 20%. But the bottom line is the 3% down with the FHA financing will make the rates and the cost of the home very much so in line with what people are already paying for rent. But it's all in the perspective of how you look at it, because you can't get asphyxiated on, oh, this is a $130,000 house. It's just like you buying a car. They don't sell you a car, this is a $50,000 car. This car will cost you $680 a month or $210 a month for this. And then becomes the price. So the same concept here.
So there'll be people there when you mentioned the FHA that, you know, that might need assistance or that didn't know about it, that they have it. There'll be people there on the 17th to explain, you know, that the different kind of options. If somebody you don't have the 3%, but they have other programs like you had mentioned the FHA, there'll be professionals there to talk about that on the 17th. Well, I'm going to make an assumption and say yes. Excellent.
This will very much so feel like, for those who haven't had a chance to go to an open house like this, it will feel much more like a fair where you have multiple things going on. I'll be there talking. You'll have probably different people from the city there. You'll have different banks. You'll have a plethora of people from within the community, local contractors that'll be there. So it'll be a very festive environment promoting this. So there will be a lot of information. A lot of times within the bigger cities, Indianapolis, you may very well have where there may be you know, the health department that's there that helping with people in various situations. So the whole idea is to make it so it's more of a community outreach. So I strongly encourage you to come see it, come experience it. This is going to be something great for the city. I think that with Union City beginning to put themselves on the map with it being an opportunity zone, which is a whole different dynamic, because within just the tax rates within itself for those who are investors, opportunity zones, which is kind of starting to now come out a little bit more, and I can't, you know, speak too specific as I'm not an accountant, but there are particular tax benefits and tax gains that people are able to utilize from deferred capital gains and things like that. But you need to talk to your accountant more specifically. But with what Union City has been given as an opportunity zone, which most people won't know what that is, which is fine, but most business owners or people who are into you know, development will find this attractive because of the particular tax benefits for it.
Let's get away from the taxes and the financing and get back to a little bit more of the description. When you talk about the homes on the inside, what can somebody expect as far as cabinets or your flooring or the outside, you know, patio space, you know, anything like that? Are they all going to be the same? Is it going to be? It's not going to look like a Partridge Family bus.
No, look, that was a good show though. But
yes,
but no, yeah, it wouldn't look like the Partridge Family, but they would all be individual. They would still be all the same quality, but you would have, if somebody wanted a white cabinet, or they wanted a brown cabinet, or they wanted an espresso cabinet, there would be, you know, at least 3 various colors of standard selections they'd be able to choose. Same thing would be with the carpeting. The same thing would be with the flooring. You know, 10-foot ceilings are coming standard within the first floor units with very large windows. I've designed the houses so that it incorporates bringing inside in by having a lot of natural light. And when you tend to have a lot more natural light, it's already been proven through studies that people naturally tend to feel better when you have more natural light. Taller ceilings will give the houses much more of a bigger feel. So the whole idea, what I try to design, is making sure when we run into that super cold winter day, nobody can do anything, that you're actually happy. Okay, I get to hang out at home because home's been designed nicely.
That 70-inch screen.
It's a 70-inch screen, you know, make your breakfast, and you know, the kids could be. So that's what I try to design around, is making the home so it's comfortable. And you know, I'm excited for people to come experience it, come out and talk about it further, so they can find out.
Well, I don't. Do you have anything more, Keith? It sounds like April 17th is going to be the big date. You want to show up at the Union City Community Room. We're here with Keith Payne from ARHI, and that acronym is for?
Actually, it stands for Affordable Roofing Home Improvement, from where I started years ago, which kind of brings up, you know, with Mike, that kind of connected Nate and I initially when I was speaking with Nate. He's been incredibly visionary as far as dealing with helping to pull all this together. I mean, from showing the leadership, creating the opportunities for people to see the concept, and just watching it be able to actually materialize. So
Well,
very excited.
Nate grew up in Union City, so he knows a lot about Union City. So he's a good man to have on your side.
And a lot of the local contractors. You know, we've had a particular meeting with the local contractors. I think it's great, you know, keeping revenue as much as possible within the city. So it kind of compounds like a savings account within itself. You know, if you've got people working here, that they're creating the houses, they're getting paid for that, they're going to go to local shops and buy.
Absolutely.
And the energy just keeps compounding on itself. So.
Absolutely. I think this is a great step in the right direction for Union City. If there's one thing that the Randolph County Economic Development Corporation is working on, is make your communities, do stuff like this to your communities, and then people won't want to come in, because people study, they don't want the factories come in, they will drive to somewhere else. They want somewhere nice to live. And this sounds like a great start for this historic Oak Street. I'm anxious to hear what's going to go on the 17th, as you should too. Again, that's Union City Community Room, Wednesday, April 17th, right around the corner at 7 p.m. Keith Payne and all kinds of local contractors, everybody that could ever talk to you about making this happen for you if you're a first-time home buyer, anything like that. They'll answer all your questions, and we're looking forward to seeing the ground break, and we're looking forward to seeing a lot more Keith here in Union City. And just make sure you got gas in your car, Keith.
That's the truth. And make sure when you come there and see us, tell them that we saw you, Keith, on TV, which is why we're here. So anyway, it'll be a fun day. So we look forward to hopefully seeing as many people out.
Well, Keith, I don't know if is there anything I missed that you might want to mention, or you know what we want to do is we will segue into your video that was put together that we've been playing on KISS TV. It's been all over social media. It's a fantastic video talking about the project, well put together, and we'll play that on the end of this. If you don't have anything else to add, we'll just
this really is not, this totally is not about me. This is totally about your city. And I think it's a great story. I was just telling Nate coming in here, it reminds me of a story when I was little, this the little tugboat that believed it could. And it was up against all these big tugboats, and it finally got its day. And that's what this kind of reminds me about. I'm happy for the city because you know, I've seen what Indianapolis has done from the cultural trails, which is what this coming into historic Oak Street. So I know what can happen. It's just if the people believe, and I do believe people do believe. So
I believe it as well. That's why I came back home to come back and to be a part of my hometown redefining itself. So I'm looking forward to it. Keith, thank you for your time. Looking forward to seeing everybody, and Nate Conklin and everybody on the 17th again at the Union City Community Room at 7 p.m. They'll be talking all about historic Oak Street, and they'll be answering all your questions. So thanks a lot for joining us, and we'll see you there on the 17th.
The uniqueness about Union City, what really catches my attention, is how the city is taking themselves, pulling them up from the bootstraps, as we would know traditionally, and reinventing themselves.
We're at a kind of a crossroads of, maybe be born again. The community has fell in some hard times back through the 1980s, and then we started seeing a rebirth, and then we saw a need for housing.
We have some more job opportunities now, greater job opportunities than we've had in the last 12 to 14 years. We've got 2 new companies that have located here, and of course, all of them are still looking for help and looking to hire people. So we need housing for that workforce.
We're losing people month after month to surrounding communities, going to Greenville, Ohio, Richmond, Indiana, Dayton, Ohio, Muncie, Indiana, up north to Portland. They want new homes.
And when we got with Mayor Conklin, we were like, we've got to get out of this situation we're in. We've got to change the the paradigm. We got to change the way that we think about our community and start thinking not these things that we can't do, but the things that we can do. And we've found that, you know, once we come up with an idea or a project, and if we dedicate ourselves to that, it happens. You know, you can make it happen.
This is phase one of the whole concept. We believe that well, we've been working on a couple different opportunities for our community that could bring a substantial amount of employment here.
That's a two-stage process, but the first primary stage right now is dealing with individual single-family houses on a particular 3-acre parcel of ground.
And this place here on Oak Street is going to be a historic trail.
Down all of Oak Street, basically right in front of the homes that are going to be built on historic Oak Street. The old gravel lot is going to be new homes. Roughly 12 homes are going to be placed on that lot. There's 13 across the street, so it will pair up pretty well. It'll create a good view of the street to keep it more residential from downtown Union City all the way to the park.
So what makes the project unique and what we're building are individual houses. Now, as a builder, what I've done is I've listened to the city, I've listened to the mayor, the council, and we're creating the houses around a traditional historic look. The buildings where the houses will look like something of more of an older school, older world setup versus us just coming in building modern homes in there. So we're intentionally, from what I am designing, coming up with a concept that will emulate an older style of the city. I am a big advocate of, if you're going to work in a particular city, that you hire local so that the local revenue stays within the city and it helps to encourage growth within the city. Because people living there, if they have a job, they're going to spend there. If they spend there, income's going to go up, or at least revenue movement's going to go up, and it helps local vendors. It's a make sense economic thing how I look at it.
It's also a good, I think, a marketing point for the community too, and we can show people that are maybe looking at moving to the community, you know, this is what we have, this is the kind of thing we can do here, and we're going to have this type of housing available for you if you decide that you want to come here and join our community. And it's just been a real gift to be able to have that kind of a team together, with everybody kind of pulling in the same way, and something you don't see a whole lot in today's world. That you get that kind of a group of people that all have the same vision and the same hope for the community, and all of us, I think, are no doubt in love with the community and want to make sure that when our children and grandchildren grow up, that this place is a strong and a thriving place for them too.